In international economics, tariffs are among the most direct and divisive tools a government can use. These taxes on imports have shaped the way countries interact for centuries, influencing everything from the price of everyday goods to the balance of power between nations. Understanding tariffs is key to grasping the broader dynamics of global trade. A tariff is simply a tax on imported goods, designed to make foreign products more expensive and encourage buying domestic alternatives. By raising the cost of imports, governments hope to give local businesses a competitive edge, supporting homegrown industries and jobs. Tariffs can be applied to a wide range of products, from steel and electronics to food and clothing, affecting what we see on store shelves and how much we pay. Supporters say tariffs protect local industries and jobs, shielding them from foreign competition that might otherwise undercut prices or flood the market. They argue that tariffs can help nurture emerging industries, preserve national security, and maintain economic independence. For many, tariffs are a way to ensure that domestic workers and companies aren't left behind in a rapidly changing global economy. On the other hand, critics argue they disrupt global supply chains and raise prices for everyone. When tariffs are imposed, the extra costs often get passed on to consumers, making everyday items more expensive. Businesses that rely on imported materials may struggle to keep up, leading to shortages, delays, and even job losses in some sectors. When countries retaliate with their own tariffs, it can quickly spiral into a trade war, hurting businesses and consumers on both sides. Trade wars can escalate tensions between nations, disrupt long-standing partnerships, and create uncertainty in global markets. The ripple effects can be felt worldwide, impacting everything from small businesses to multinational corporations. The Trump administration has used tariffs more aggressively than any recent U.S. government, aiming to renegotiate trade deals and put America first. This approach marked a significant shift in U.S. trade policy, targeting countries like China and Mexico with new tariffs in hopes of securing better terms for American workers and industries. But this approach has also injected volatility into the global economy, leaving businesses and consumers facing unpredictable costs. Stock markets have reacted sharply to tariff announcements, and many companies have had to rethink their supply chains or absorb higher expenses. For families, this can mean higher prices at the checkout and more uncertainty about the future. The debate over tariffs is ultimately a clash between protectionism and free trade, with real consequences for everyday life. As governments weigh the benefits and drawbacks, the choices they make will continue to shape the global economy and the lives of people everywhere for years to come. After months of escalating trade tensions and a series of tit-for-tat tariff hikes that rattled global markets, the world watched anxiously as the United States seemed poised for even more drastic measures. In a move that stunned both allies and adversaries, President Trump announced a 90-day pause on most of his signature tariffs in April 2025, sending shockwaves through the international community and financial markets alike. Although a baseline 10% tariff remained in place, the suspension of harsher taxes represented a significant de-escalation, a rare moment of restraint from an administration known for its aggressive trade stance. For many, it was a surprising retreat that hinted at deeper concerns within the White House. The decision came on the heels of near crises with Mexico and Canada, where frantic, last-minute negotiations barely managed to prevent a full-blown trade war that could have crippled North American commerce. Behind closed doors, advisors and economists warned of the mounting risks, as businesses across the country braced for further uncertainty and potential supply chain disruptions. The pause was more than just a political maneuver. It was a tacit acknowledgement that the U.S. economy is deeply interconnected with global supply chains, and that tariffs, while politically potent, carry real and immediate economic costs for American industries. Even some of Trump's staunchest allies conceded that the tariffs risked pushing the economy toward recession, as business leaders and economic experts voiced growing alarm over the potential fallout. Meanwhile, critics were quick to label the tariffs as self-inflicted wounds, arguing that American workers and small businesses were bearing the brunt of the administration's trade policies. The 90-day pause is widely seen as a tactical retreat, a calculated move to buy time, reassess the economic fallout, and perhaps open the door to renegotiating key trade relationships before more lasting damage is done. Ultimately, the pause serves as a stark reminder that while tariffs can be a powerful negotiating tool, their prolonged use comes at a steep price, one paid not just by foreign competitors, but by American businesses, workers, and consumers alike. Tariffs aren't just an abstract policy, they affect what's on store shelves and how much you pay. The US relies on imports for everything from smartphones and laptops to clothing, furniture, and even groceries. Most electronics are assembled in Asia, and tariffs on these goods mean higher prices for American consumers. Everyday items like shoes and toys are often made in countries with lower production costs. Tariffs on these raise costs for families. Even the food supply is global. Winter produce, avocados, and specialty foods often come from abroad. Tariffs disrupt this system, making goods more expensive and sometimes harder to find. The US imports because it's efficient. Other countries can produce certain goods more cheaply or with better quality. Broad tariffs upset this balance, forcing Americans to confront just how interconnected their economy is with the world. America's aggressive tariffs sent shockwaves through the global economy, triggering swift and calculated retaliation from its major trading partners. The sudden imposition of tariffs on a wide range of goods left many nations scrambling to protect their own industries and economies. However, the unexpected 90-day pause in tariff escalation changed the tone of international relations, offering a rare moment of reflection and recalibration for all involved. The European Union, feeling the pressure on its steel and agricultural sectors, mirrored the US pause. This move provided temporary relief to industries caught in the crossfire, allowing European leaders to regroup and strategize. Behind closed doors, EU officials worked tirelessly to shield their economies from further shocks, while also preparing for the possibility of renewed hostilities. In North America, Mexico and Canada found themselves in a delicate balancing act. To avoid sweeping tariffs that could devastate their economies, both countries made significant security concessions. These negotiations highlighted the leverage behind Trump's threats and underscored the interconnectedness of the region's supply chains, especially in the automotive sector. With China, however, the US took a much harder line, raising tariffs to an unprecedented 145%. In response, China hiked its own tariffs to 84%, escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies. The tit-for-tat measures sent ripples through global markets, affecting everything from electronics to agriculture. China's response was defiant, yet carefully measured. While officials made it clear they would not back down, they also left the door open for negotiation, signaling a desire to avoid further escalation and the economic pain it would bring to both sides. Elsewhere in Asia, countries like South Korea and Vietnam took a different approach. Rather than retaliate, they prioritized dialogue and diplomacy, viewing the pause as a valuable opportunity to strengthen trade ties and avoid being caught in the crossfire of larger powers. The global impact was undeniable. Over 75 countries reached out to the US to discuss new tariff rates, underscoring the widespread urgency to prevent a deeper, more damaging trade war. International organizations and alliances scrambled to mediate and find common ground. The 90-day pause created a fragile window for dialogue and negotiation. While it offered hope for a diplomatic breakthrough, the risk of renewed conflict and economic instability remains ever present, keeping the world on edge as talks continue. Tariff policy has created chaos for American businesses, forcing tough choices as costs rise. Some companies absorbed higher expenses, but many passed them on to consumers, fueling price hikes and inflation. While tariffs aim to protect manufacturing jobs, many industries reliant on imported parts suffered, and exporters faced retaliation abroad. Farmers in particular lost access to key markets, deepening financial strain in rural communities. For consumers, tariffs meant higher prices on everything from appliances to groceries. The 90-day pause offered brief relief, but the damage, higher costs and economic uncertainty, lingers. Stock markets reflected this anxiety, with wild swings following tariff announcements and pauses. Even a temporary reprieve can't undo the loss of global trust, or the chilling effect on investment and job growth. Trump's tariff roller coaster has split experts and politicians. Supporters like Vice President J.D. Vance argue tariffs are needed to rebalance unfair trade, claiming they've forced countries to negotiate. Critics, including Democrats and some Republicans, call the approach chaotic and damaging, even pushing for laws to limit presidential tariff powers. Economists warn that extreme tariffs, like the 145% rate on China, could sever trade ties and disrupt entire industries. Financial analysts say the unpredictability has already hurt the U.S. economy and eroded global trust. The debate boils down to whether short-term pain is worth the promise of long-term strength, or if the costs are simply too high. Public opinion is turning against the president's trade policies. Recent polls show 61% of Americans disapprove of Trump's tariffs, with only 38% in support. This disapproval is dragging down his overall approval rating, even among his own voters. Support among Trump's 2024 voters dropped from 95% to 85% by August 2025, and even more among moderate Republicans. Many Americans blame tariffs for rising prices and economic instability. The growing backlash is putting political pressure on the administration to reconsider its approach. In a democracy, public sentiment shapes policy, and the narrative of winning the trade war is losing ground. As negotiations continue, the administration must weigh economic data against the court of public opinion. As the 90-day pause continues, the future of U.S. trade policy hangs in the balance. If negotiations succeed, the world could see new, stable trade agreements and economic relief. If talks fail, tariffs may return with a vengeance, risking a renewed global trade war and higher prices for all. There's also the risk of ongoing uncertainty, pauses, threats, and instability that keep businesses and families on edge. The stakes are high. Everything from your morning coffee to your job depends on these decisions. The pause is a tacit admission that the U.S. can't isolate itself without consequences. Whether this leads to pragmatic deal-making or deeper conflict will shape American life for years to come.